Okay, so welcome to the Outdoor Quest TV Zoomcast. I'm TJ Schwanke, and today we have a special guest, Jason St. Michael from Safari Club International. And I never know what your title is, Jason. You're just kind of the guy who does everything as far as I'm concerned.
Lately, it seems that way. So I am the senior manager for chapter services. I'm the interim director for membership, and I am the senior chapter service specialist for Canada.
So basically, my assessment was right. You just do everything. Yeah.
It seems like it lately.
So
Yes.
explain a little bit about how Safari Club works. I mean, I think everyone thinks of Safari Club being a US-based organization, and they are, but we do have a Safari Club International Canada too.
That's correct. So yeah, we are based out of the United States, but we're a global entity essentially. We have an office in Ottawa, we have an office in Europe, and we have an office in the two offices in the United States. We're headquartered out of Washington D.C., and we also have an office in Tucson, Arizona.
Okay, and basically, in a nutshell, what does Safari Club International do?
In a nutshell, we're here to protect the rights and freedoms of hunters. In Canada, we don't have it as a right, but it is our hunting heritage. So we are looking to promote hunting, preserve hunting, and keep it for future generations.
So you've got chapters right across Canada now.
But
Yeah, so I think we have, how many chapters do we have here in Alberta? A bunch.
hard to keep track. There's 5 in Alberta, 5 in Ontario, 2 in British Columbia, 1 in Saskatchewan, 1 in Manitoba, 1 in Quebec, and 1 in Nova Scotia.
Oh, wow. So I know we're quite involved with quite a few of our chapters here in Alberta. And I think a lot of times, Safari Club International has always thought about a bunch of guys that hunt in Africa, but that's really not true. I know our clubs here in Alberta, and I'm sure right across Canada, are really involved in a local level as well. I know I do that antelope fencing project through the Alberta Fish and Game. I know one of our chapters here, the Northern Alberta chapter, is given money to that. We've worked closely with the Calgary chapter on, feeding homeless people and things like that. And I know there's a lot of advocacy too towards hunting right here in Canada.
Absolutely. So absolutely, our members absolutely travel to hunt. Whether it's traveling from Alberta to British Columbia, from Ontario to Saskatchewan, or to Africa or to the United States, wherever it is, we tend to be more the traveling hunter. However, we are very locally based as well. And as you said, we do a lot of projects. There's grizzly bear projects, polar bear projects, cougar, mountain lion, elk, antelope, sage grouse, so much that goes on. One of the biggest differences between us and most organizations is our chapters are really independently run. They keep 70% of the money they raise at their largest fundraisers to do projects locally, to do Feed the Hungry, to do advocacy, to do conservation work. Conservation, education, humanitarian are the 3 pillars, as well as advocacy, that we work under. We have 2 organizations in Canada, Safari Club International, which is predominantly our advocacy side of things. And then we have a foundation, which does our conservation, education, and humanitarian efforts.
I know Vanessa and I have been involved with Safari Club for, I don't even know how many years, forever, basically. But you have a big anniversary coming up next year, don't you?
We do. It's our 50th anniversary of the organization. And you know what? We're almost 50 years in Canada as well. I think it's about 40 years in Canada that we've been around. The Ontario chapter is the oldest chapter in Canada.
Okay. And so I imagine some big things planned, COVID permitting.
Yeah, this has put a real damper on things for sure. But yeah, absolutely. We have, so this will be our 50th fundraising, 50th anniversary of the organization this year. So we're going to be celebrating that in 2021. 2022 will be the 50th convention that we host. So we're basically going to be celebrating our 50th for 2 years in a row. And we have some huge things coming, special 50 guns, special, all kinds of special raffles and exciting things to help celebrate the 50 years.
Well, speaking of raffles and fundraisers, I mean, your banquets in Canada, are the chapter's biggest fundraisers. And a lot of that's been put on hold by COVID this year. So how are they getting around that?
Well, we have been seeing a lot of online hunting auctions, a lot of online raffles, special raffles. I'll tell you what, our chapters are very creative and they've come up with some great things. And we've done a lot of neat things. We're also looking at doing a national fundraiser, virtual fundraiser this summer, and it's still in the works, but something I can't really get into it too much, but really to help the hunting industry.
Okay. And I mean, it's no secret that the hunting industry is really in peril. And as our fall season's rapidly approaching and, we're still full of unknowns, whether, I think probably Northwest Territories, after all the bear seasons have obviously been canceled,
Sure.
but Northwest Territories, their sheep season's open here in just another month, and it's pretty uncertain and looking less likely all the time. So our hunting industry, as far as, the outfitting industry for sure is in real trouble. And outfitters are a big supporter of Safari Club International.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, that's one of the things that we're doing at the national level in Canada. We're advocating that the government open up borders so our international travelers can come for these type hunts. Bearing in mind being safe, keeping social distancing and everything else,
Yeah.
we absolutely need to see that happen. But at the same time, we also need to see that, or we need to compensate these outfitters. You're talking about sheep or goats. They only get so many tags, and they may pre-sell them for a couple of years. So postponing those hunts is not an option for some people. Whereas you have a black bear outfitter, for example, they can postpone a hunt if they can take an extra couple guys because they don't necessarily have a limited number of tags that they're offering, if that's the case. So we're really recommending, first of all, people work with their outfitters, but we're also putting lots of pressure on the government to reestablish or compensate these outfitters to assist them as where the outfitters can refund purchases and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, we've interviewed a couple of outfitters on here recently, and I think it's just the uncertainty. Like, I think all small independent business people, the foundation of any business is planning, and
Yep.
that's been taken away from us right now. We just literally cannot plan because we don't know what the future holds. So, I guess going back to that, how is the membership doing right now? Is your membership numbers up, down, and what can people do to help?
Our membership is stable. We're not increasing. Traditionally, this time of year, we are growing.
Yeah.
Our chapter events, people are, buying memberships at them. So I mean, the way we can help is get involved, buy a membership, contact us at Safari Club and let us know you want to be a part of it. It's $65 Canadian for a membership if you buy it through your chapter. Just get a hold of one of us and I can easily direct you to the local chapter. That's for 1 year. There's 3 years and life membership specials as well. Contact your chapter and see how you can help them. I mean, they do a lot of great things locally, and they're always looking for people to come out and help out and be a part of the chapter. I mean, our hunting, our firearms rights, everything is based on getting out and getting involved. We can't sit back and wait for things to be taken away to try and get them back.
Oh, totally. And I think that's one of the concerns right now for, all nonprofit groups and advocacy groups is, people are locked up. They're, money's tight for a lot of people, but boy, we can't forget about organizations like Safari Club. Like, we're going to need them more than ever as we come out of this. And, without membership, there's just no strength.
I agree. And, we look at some of the things that have happened in the recent years. You look at the grizzly bear cancellation in British Columbia. It was done without any sound science. And, our membership, we need the members to get back there to fight back to try and reestablish this grizzly bear hunt using sound science. We look at the recent order in council that was put forth by the Liberal government to ban firearms. And, one of the biggest things that we're seeing, the original OIC may not affect many hunters with the firearms that were banned. It affects firearms, period. And we're seeing firearms being added to this FRT on a daily basis. And we need, as firearms owners and enthusiasts, we need to support the industry and fight against this entire OIC, whether you own one of those banned firearms or not.
And Safari Club is involved in that fight right now, aren't they?
We absolutely are. We actually organized a collaborative statement with the over 50 different organizations to make a statement to the government that the OIC was overreaching. It was against our Charter of Rights, and that we really feel that it should be rescinded. And some consultation and really put the efforts where it's going to make a difference instead of attacking law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, kudos to Safari Club for kind of being that, the head that kind of brought all these groups together, because, individually, I don't think we're going to beat this, but, as a group, I think we stand a good chance, because, I mean, there's a lot wrong with this. And I think that's where we need to put our differences aside. Like, I hear a lot of hunters, but I don't agree with this part of Safari Club. I don't agree with this part of some other group and everything else. And I think we need to put those small differences aside and look at that common goal, which, is supporting our, well, I guess they're not actually rights, but they should be.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, and you know what? You make a good point that some people, they may not agree with certain things that Safari Club endorses or is a part of, as the same as they may not agree with certain parts of their provincial organization and stuff. These groups, all of these groups, I don't care which one it is. Most of us belong to multiples. I know I got a wallet full of membership cards, but at the end of the day, they all do very good work. They all have a common goal, and we're all trying to get to the same place. And if there's something you don't particularly appreciate, maybe it's estate hunting, then, you don't have to participate in that. You don't have to support that part of it. But, when we're fighting for hunters' rights or firearms rights or seasons, we need to stand together and support legally, ethically hunted wildlife. If somebody's out hunting with a crossbow, or they're hunting with a longbow, or they're hunting grizzly bears or wolves, I mean, we just can't afford to oppose that. We can say, I personally don't like it, or I'm not interested in it, but I don't oppose it, as long as it's legal.
Well, you know what, and that brings up a good point. I mean, we all have our niches we participate in, and there's parts of the heritage that we don't participate in. But it's pretty easy for the government, and I mean, they're obviously masters at it. It's just picking away at that low-hanging fruit all the time, and it's pretty easy to say, "Well, that didn't affect me. That didn't affect me. That didn't affect me," until all of a sudden it does affect me, and that's
Right.
where that line. And I think a lot of people miss the big picture there, that they want it all. I mean, it's and they're smart enough to go. And I mean, the firearms ban was a pretty obvious choice. I mean, in the scheme of things, it affects about 5% of gun owners, which seems minor in the small picture, but in the big picture, it's huge, because you and I both know that they have no intention of stopping there.
Well, in the last week, there was a 410 shotgun been added to the FRT. There's been a 22 Mossberg been added to the FRT. Among, I think there's 36 different 12-gauge shotguns that were added to the FRT. Granted, they're not the typical wood, grandpa-looking firearm, but regardless, I mean, I know a lot of people that hunt with a shotgun for turkey that looks like an AR-type shotgun. They just think that that's really cool, and that's what they want to use. It functions no different than the Benelli that I use.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, we've got to be cognizant of that and really support one another. And it's no different than hunting. If I choose to go to a game ranch and hunt an animal, and it's ethically, it's a big ranch and everything else, that if they really are opposed to it, first of all, they don't have to do it. And number two, if they're really that opposed to it, they should try and change the laws, as opposed to fighting with us online and so on and so forth. I just think that these laws are out there. These management rules are out there. Hopefully science-based, that we'll see good hunting in the future going forward. I mean, most of the time, these decisions aren't made willy-nilly. They're using sound science, and based on that, obviously, we see some variances to that.
Well, I mean, I've always said the easiest time to be an expert about something is when you know nothing about it. And,
Right.
it's no different than going to Africa. I mean, I think the first time you go to Africa is the smartest you ever are about Africa. And I think we're on our 12th trip to Africa now. And I realize how dumb I am about Africa. I don't have much clue what's going on there. And I think that comes with experience. And it's pretty easy to say, crossbow hunting's wrong, hunting with hounds is wrong, things like that, until you actually go participate in it. And everyone's kind of these days, I have a right to an opinion, I have a right to an opinion, and I agree to some degree on that, but you have a right to an informed opinion.
Right.
And we need to become informed. And I think the more, and that's why I like Safari Club, and that's why I really like hanging around with the hunters that are members, is because they are typically well-traveled, they've experienced a lot, and they do look, I think, at the bigger picture. And not to put down any other hunters that haven't, had the good fortune to travel. What I'm just trying to portray here is keep an open mind, because the more you do travel and the more you see, the more open your mind becomes to what's going on out there.
I come from that, never left my area to hunt. Oh, we have a deer camp. We've done that all our lives. And I'll tell you, when I started this job, I thought, I'll never be interested in going to Africa. And the more that I've learned and the more that it's opened up, I've done the trip to Africa. I've done the trips out west. I've done the trips to the United States. I'm not by any means done a ton of hunting, traveling and stuff like that, but it's very easy. It's economical. And I tell you what, it's quite rewarding. Well, I don't have to tell you. But to the people out there, the other thing I wanted to say is, yes, we have a lot of those people in our organization. We have an awful lot of people that are just like, the average hunter that goes to deer camp once a year, maybe hunts bear or turkey. And a lot of those people are the people on the ground with, boots on the ground that are hosting these fundraisers, doing all of this work. And they're just as important. So, hopefully the viewers understand that we're not trying to say that, one is over the other. We really, if you look at our logo, it's SCI, First for Hunters. And we believe in that, certainly in Canada, whether you're hunting woodcock or you're hunting grizzly bear, everybody's important, and all of the species are important.
Oh, and I totally agree. And like, I know here in Alberta, the government relies on a public consulting group, and it's comprised of all the hunting groups in Alberta. And Safari Club plays a critical role on that. And I mean, that's, setting direction for our hunting right here in Alberta. And like you say, I mean, it's a lot of those guys are probably international hunters, but they still, and even me, I mean, I've been fortunate to travel, all over the world, and hunting at home is still the most critical thing for me. And the thing I'm most passionate about. And, having that one more voice of Safari Club, I mean, I probably belong to 6 of the groups that are on that advisory council to the government on hunting. And, I think the more voices we can have on there, the more critical it is. And when Safari Club's sitting there, they are sitting there as the voice of, our resident hunters.
Right. The other thing too is we bring an international perspective. Sometimes provincial or even local groups get caught up in their own area. And so we have biologists on staff. We have a legal team on staff that we can vet things through. And again, we look at the international part of it. So we have international lawyers that say, okay, you're looking to do a court challenge. How's this going to benefit? What's the outcome look like? What's the cost factor going to look like? How are we going to get the best bang for our buck? And so we have a lot of things that we look at. And again, we are, international. So a couple of years ago in Alberta, they were trying to stop the African hunting show from coming to town. And we sought to put an injunction in there so they couldn't stop it. And we were successful in Calgary. And I believe that show still goes on today. As a matter of fact, the Calgary chapter is involved with it. And so, that's just one example of things that we've done in the past. I know we were heavily involved in fighting the grizzly bear closure, both in British Columbia and in Alberta. And, we're advocates to bring those hunts back. We're advocates to open up polar bear exportation, from Canada to the United States. The science was ignored. There's a healthy population. It's sustainable, and we should be allowing these American hunters to come up and that do hunt to be able to bring their trophies home.
Oh, exactly. And I think you bring a good point there. A lot of conservation groups, just by the way they're registered, can't be advocacy groups as well.
Yeah.
And, that's what Safari Club brings to the table. I mean, you have no trouble getting right in provincial, federal government's faces because that's what you are.
Absolutely. One of the other things I just said was trophy, and that's been a big. That's, that's been a term that the anti-hunters have used against us. And I'd like to go on the record saying a trophy is simply, what you make of it. It can be, a doe, or it can be a 200-inch whitetail. It can be your trophy. It's not a negative connotation to an animal. Our people, I will say our people, our membership, hunters, consume 90% of the animals they harvest. There are certain animals absolutely they don't consume, and some may, maybe a wolf or a grizzly bear, for example, but some do consume them too. So they follow the laws. A moose is always consumed, for example, and that's something I'd really like to say, that because I see a lot of even hunters. I don't support trophy hunting. I hunt for food. Well, so do we. But you know what? When that 200-inch whitetail and there's a 130-inch whitetail standing in the field, every one of us shoot the 200-inch whitetail because we're super excited to have that beautiful trophy on our wall. And you can see behind me, I have a couple myself. But you know what? Every part of the meat on those deer were also consumed and harvested.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
it's no different than going to Africa and TJ, you know this probably better than anybody. Somebody shoots an elephant, the entire villages come out, and that elephant is consumed. There's nothing left. Where, we leave a gut pile on the ground after shooting a deer. There's nothing after, when you're in Africa, they consume every part of it.
Well, I have to tell you a funny story. I hunted a giraffe in Namibia. It was a free-range conservancy, and they had a giraffe there it was an old bull that was kind of controlling the cows and wasn't allowing any of the younger bulls to breed. But this older bull was past his breeding prime, so he couldn't breed anymore. So it was a 100% science-based hunt. They wanted this old bull taken out. So I had the good fortune to actually hunt this bull. It was a phenomenal hunt, everything else. And of course, all the meat was used. But the funny story about that is we're also going to hunt hyenas, because there was quite an overabundance of spotted hyenas there, and they wanted some of them taken out. So we wanted to leave a little bit of the guts, or a little bit of something behind for the hyenas. And just the negotiation that took place between the village people to leave one leg bone behind, it was unbelievable.
Yep.
But that's how critical that meat was to them. I mean, the guts were totally stripped out. Like, there was literally a wet spot in the sand, where that giraffe had been laying 3 hours earlier. And until you to think, I mean, and I always tell people this, and hunters sometimes are the worst too that have never been. They're like, oh, you trophy hunters waste all the meat. To think that any protein goes to waste in an overpopulated country where protein is the most precious thing there is ridiculous. And same here at home. I mean, to think that any meat from, a deer or a moose or anything like that, I mean, it's good meat. I know even a lot of our outfitters in, northern parts of Canada work very closely with Indigenous groups and things like that to supply them with meat. It's become a super critical part of what we do. I was down desert sheep hunting in Mexico in March. And, we were hunting with the Siri people down there. And, to me, it was just almost that exact African model. They were managers of the game, but all the money from the hunting went back into the community. The meat was very important to the community. So I think that, we always look at Africa as being that place where meat's important. But once you start looking at the whole thing, that meat is critical everywhere. And you talk to any outfitter in Canada, he's probably got a waiting list of people that want meat, and they're very happy. And typically at their own expense, they process it all for them. I've got a good buddy here who's a waterfowl outfitter who kills thousands and thousands of ducks and geese, and he pays for it all to be processed and given to people. So it's a good news story, and people they need to stop believing that trophy means, hanging that deer on the wall behind you and that's the end of the hunt.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I actually have an antelope behind me that I took in in southern Alberta, and exactly the same thing. He was like, "Do you want the meat?" He says, "If not, I got a family that will, they want it really." I said, "Oh, give it to the family. It's perfect."
Yeah.
So I agree. I mean, the other thing too, and I'm not sure, are you familiar with the Wild Harvest Initiative that's ongoing? We're supporting that.
Yes.
Okay, well, Shane Mahoney is doing a study, and what he's finding is if the world stopped consuming wild game, everything from pigeons and doves right through to salmon, if the world stopped, the world could not feed themselves. There's so much consumed. And so it's been about 4 or 5 years now that we've been involved with this study. And I tell you what, that's going to be a very powerful tool to show the people and the anti-hunting community how much benefit to hunting and consuming of wildlife that is going on in the world today.
Well, and the fact that we do get that protein from, natural habitat, I think that's what gets missed often. I mean, if suddenly we stop consuming those deer, we'd need to consume more cattle. We'd need to consume more grain. We'd have to eat something. And all of a sudden that starts taking up all that native habitat that we have now, and it's going to be converted into agriculture. So there's a win there. I mean, right now in North America, we're in a pretty good place. I mean, we can allow wildlife to roam freely for intrinsic value because, we're a pretty affluent society. But places like Africa, parts of Asia, if that wildlife doesn't pay for itself, it can't exist. So, and we're probably not that far. And like that study you say, what you guys are involved in right now is starting to show that there is economic value in the fact that that habitat is preserved, just by eating a deer, which it's kind of a convoluted circle.
It is. Well, and you talk about the economic benefits. The outfitting industry in Canada alone is worth $5.9 billion.
Mm-hmm.
The fishing industry is over $9 billion in Canada. We need to support these guys in these industries. It's very important. It's very important for our economic. And I'll tell you what, I'm pretty disappointed in our current government. They've done all these aid packages. You see a lot of great things that they've done for this pandemic. Recently it was $500 million for the art industry, and all of these groups got a lot of money given to them, but not these outfitters. And here's a $5.9 billion with a B dollar industry, and no support for them, no direct support for them.
Yeah, you don't think that $40,000 loan is going to save the guy that's paying on a $5 million loan on his outfit right now?
Right. I mean, hey, $40,000. Half of these guys have spent that this spring getting ready.
Exactly, and lost it all.
Wow, it's incredible to me that this is the way our government looks at things. But it's not that surprising, I suppose.
Well, I mean, obviously, we do have a federal government now that's not overly supportive of hunting, fishing, shooting. And I mean, it's a fact of life. And I think that's why groups like Safari Club are more important than ever right now. Like, we're fairly fortunate in Alberta right now to have a provincial government that's very pro-hunting, very pro-gun. I mean, right early on, and I think this was missed right early on, Jason Nixon declared hunting and fishing as essential. Which I think a lot of people miss. So it allowed our hunting and fishing businesses like stores to stay open, things like that. When the OHV bans were put on in the beginning, hunters were exempt because it was essential. BC followed suit, which was great. And I think some things like that were missed. And now our government set up a panel to look at the gun laws to see what they can do. And on a provincial level, we're doing great, but still at a federal level and a lot of provincial levels, we're not doing good. And that's why we need to stay in their face.
You're right. And you know what? We're probably going to see an election this fall. You can see the way the current government's really setting themselves up for an election. Part of this OIC, that was all an election platform issue. They're baiting the Conservatives, and we need to really get out there and support the Conservatives as well. That's my personal opinion.
I don't think you're going to get a lot of arguments among our followers.
Yeah, that's my personal opinion. But you need to be members. You need to vote. We need to have a strong political candidate. I don't have to tell anybody in the West about how important it is. I mean, you guys are very, very strong Conservative led out West, but it's going to be a very critical election. and we need to make sure that we have the right people in power to lead us through. I mean, we're in economic times that it's going to be, we don't know where it's going to go. We have firearms rights that we don't know where they're going to go, where there's lots of unknowns that we need to really have a strong leader to bring us through.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So kind of hopefully once this COVID thing, I don't know even if it exists anymore, the way people are gathering nowadays, but we won't go down that road.
Yeah, that's a different rabbit hole.
But so kind of once this all comes to an end, what can we look forward to from Spark Club in the future?
Well, as I said, I think that we're going to start looking at ways we can start by helping the outfitting industry. That's a huge part. We're looking at ways that we can work with government on a stronger level, certainly here in Canada, but around the world. We just did a virtual advocacy week this week, and we included MP Bob Zimmer, who is the co-chair of the Parliamentary Outdoor Caucus. Safari Club International Canada sits on as an advisory role to the Parliamentary Outdoor Caucus. We have good relations with the Conservative Hunting and Angling and Trapping Caucus. So we're doing a lot of advocacy work, and you're going to see a lot more come out of it. This OIC, you're going to see a stronger fighting. But I think what we're going to see too is a lot of our chapters are going to maybe have different, smaller events this fall, hopefully. And I would encourage people to join SCI. I would encourage people to support their local chapters. And I would also encourage them to get out and get involved and see how they can help out and make a difference. If we don't fight and protect our hunting heritage, it will go away.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely. And we need to get people off the couch, out from their telephones and into the field and enjoying the greatness of Canada.
Well, I think, social media, it is what it is. And I mean, there's a lot of people on social media. There's a lot of people complaining on social media, but it's a big step to go from complaining on social media to actually getting actively involved. And I think a lot of people think it's hard, and it's not. I mean, there's a lot of great groups, Safari Club International included, that you're right. You need to get way more involved than just buying. And buying your membership every year is critical, but I mean, that's the money that supports all this. But boy, they need help.
Yeah. The other thing too is I always get this. This is my favorite, is I've got a young family. We're so busy. And you know what? Here's what I'm going to tell all you people. You have a young family. It's even more important for you to get out and get involved. And get your young family involved. I know my son and my daughter, I raised them coming to fundraisers and helping out. And you know what? It grounds them and it shows them some respect. And it shows them that we have to give back for the things that are worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I would encourage every one of you that have a young family, contact your local chapter, whether it's SCI or Ducks Unlimited or Delta Waterfowl. I don't care what the local AFGA.
Yeah.
And say, hey, how can we be involved? And I've got my son and daughter, granddaughter, niece, whatever it is, with me, and how can they be involved?
Yeah. And I know money's so tight for a lot of people right now. And, $65 probably seems like a lot of money to some people, but it's money well invested in not only our future, but in future generations' futures. And I think, we do need to start looking at those big pictures. So, if you can scrape up $100 to join 2 or 3 of the organizations, it means a lot right now, just even that little tiny bit of money during these times, because, we're involved in more fights than ever right now. And probably our income is a little lower than ever just because, people are hurting. So it's important just to remember, it's kind of easy to get caught up on everything that's going around us and forget about, the stuff that is really important to us.
Yeah. The other thing that the governments have been doing, and we haven't seen it in Canada yet, thank goodness, but like in California, the UK, they've been wrapping these animal welfare bills into these COVID packages, trying to sneak them through. And so that's just one of the things we've been monitoring and been very close on, because it tends to be when one government does it, they all kind of jump on it. They see ways to make these things happen that they want to make happen. No different than the OIC, the Ordering Council, that, as soon as they had an ability, they jumped on it and they did it. They called it a military assault style ban, which most people agrees with, but in fact, they're just sporting rifles that were already had restrictions and limitations to them. We had capacity, magazine capacities, and so on and so forth. They were semi-automatics, not fully automatics. So, what they did was really a play on words to get support.
Oh, I mean, that military style assault rifle was the trophy hunting of, I mean, it was a term that was really used just to elicit emotion and nothing else.
Yep.
And that's the sad thing. I do want to tell a quick story. When we went to England hunting in January. And I think everyone thinks of England being this totally anti-hunting country. And there's no doubt there's a lot of crazy cat ladies in London that are on social media all the time, anti-hunters. But boy, once we got out of London, I was shocked at how strong the hunting heritage was, how strong the firearm heritage was. I mean, it was like people in Alberta with a British accent. And so I think those are sometimes the things we need. Like sometimes it's easy to get really down, on people from England. They're all anti-hunters. And I mean, even sometimes in the West, I mean, we're really guilty of being down on people from Quebec for a lot of reasons, but there's a lot of good people out there that have all the exact same values we do. So,
well, you know what? We have the exact same thing going on in Canada, outside of Vancouver and Edmonton and Ottawa and Toronto and Montreal. Those people tend to be in the rural communities or smaller communities, pro-hunting, pro-firearms, pro-conservative. When I say that is, they're not so left-leaning where we need to fund everything and everybody. And I think it's no different in Europe. It's no different anywhere you go. I mean, the metropolitan areas are seeing all the crime and all of the additional stuff that we're not seeing in the rural areas.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. The community of hunters is a lot bigger than your local fish and game club or something like that. The community of hunters is worldwide, and boy, there's not a better community that I'd like to be involved in. I know we have friends all over the world, and we all share those common values of conservation, and people love wildlife, and I think that often gets overlooked too. I mean, I think an anti-hunter looks at that deer on the wall behind you and oh, there's some guy thumping his chest about what a great hunter he is. And I mean, I'm sure the first thing you think about when you look at that deer is what a phenomenal experience that hunt was.
Now, this is on third floor in my office. Very few people ever come up here, so it's for me to enjoy and appreciate. And at the end of the day, I've preserved these animals for future generations to enjoy. That's the way I look at it, and it's a story and everything else. Not only that, but it's an economic benefit. Because I paid a taxidermist to do it. The deer in the middle comes from Alberta, so I had to have it shipped from Alberta. You know what I mean? So there's so many benefits that goes along with having a trophy, as they say, that I would highly encourage everybody to preserve your trophy.
Well, and I know our taxidermist, like his kids were probably just going to go to U of A until we, started using them. And now they could probably go to Harvard, right? So
yeah, no kidding. It's not cheap, that's for sure. And it's no different than a guy who goes to Africa. You think of all of the extra benefits. He stays at a motel in Vancouver or wherever he's flying out of. He rents a car. He goes to restaurants. He airlines. I mean, on and on and on and on and on. The additional benefits are incredible. Yeah. So, I think our industry is a wonderful industry. It's a well-managed industry with regards to science and the North American model and so on and so forth. Sometimes we do lose sight of it. Sometimes, there's issues. We have caribou issues in Canada and certain areas. And, sometimes we have to make concessions to protect these animals and preserve these animals. And I think for the most part, hunters realize that sometimes when it affects us economically, we're not happy about it. But at the end of the day, I think we all agree that if the science is there, we will back it and support it. So,
well, I think a lot of times we're leading the charge if the science is there.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's when the science isn't there and it doesn't justify it. They're doing it for a social reason as opposed to the science reason that we don't justify it because increasing one population of one animal may take away from the population of another animal. What are the adverse effects that it will have on another population?
Well, I think as proper game managers, we need to manage all species. And that's just a fact of life. I mean, people go, well, wildlife did fine, 1,000 years ago. Well, yeah, they did, because there wasn't 37 million people in Canada. But
Right.
we're here now. We all have an impact, and it's our responsibility to manage that wildlife to the best of our ability. And in some cases, that means harvesting some animals out of a population to benefit other animals. So, and it's a big circle. You can't just micromanage one species at a time, because the ramifications down the line, as we're seeing, are huge.
Yep.
Our caribou populations in British Columbia are in dire straits right now because we have an overpopulation of wolves. And I'm sure grizzly bears are going to affect that as well. So we need to be responsible managers. And like you say, we need to stop managing by emotion. There's zero place for emotion on either side. I mean, the hunters are emotional that they want to hunt those species. The anti-hunters are emotional that they don't want to see them killed. But in the middle lies that solid science of how we can best benefit those populations. At the end of the day, hunters are only harvesting the excess. They're not going into the main pool.
Yep. Yeah, no, you're right. And traditionally, we're hunting what we would term a trophy animal. And we're passing, as you talked about earlier, about this bull giraffe that was past its prime, no longer breeding, but not allowing other giraffes to breed. So we take that animal out of the population, other giraffes are able to come in and breed, and the population is able to grow. We've seen that with black rhino that was very sensitive several years ago that was sold. And, it was a problem with black rhino that was not only not allowing them to breed, but he was killing them.
Killing the other ones, yeah.
So it was like, it makes sense. And then at the same time, they raised $500,000 to help fight poaching and to, better conservation in that area.
Yeah.
But it was spun in a different way that, they're killing a black rhino that's on the endangered species list. Yeah. Absolutely. But how many did they save by doing that?
Yeah, and that's what gets lost in the rhetoric, unfortunately. And that's what hunting is unfortunately come down to, is a war of words. And I get the fact that we're always going to be fighting the antis. What really bothers me is when we're fighting amongst each other, and you see it a lot. And people just really need to stop, look at the big picture, realize that some people do things differently, but as long as we're all working towards that same common goal, it's going to benefit all of us. We see a lot of shaming here in Alberta sometimes. I mean, we do harvest a lot of does and things like that here in Alberta for population reasons. And, you see a lot of shaming about a guy who goes out and shoots a doe for his freezer. And I'm like, good on you. I mean, our managers decided we needed to, remove this many animals from the population to keep that population healthy. Hunting is the best management tool to do it. And, if your idea of hunting is going out, killing a doe, and that's your whole hunting season, good on you. I mean, God bless you for taking part in it, but realize that, for me, I may want to go shoot a big buck.
Right. And, the other thing too is managing wildlife is more than just managing animals. It's also the land, an area only has a certain size of carrying capacity. So we have to manage the wildlife, and hunting is a part of that management tool. I mean, they may say, okay, we're going to give out 800,000 licenses. I'm just throwing a number out there. But we know that they'll only harvest 40,000 animals, for example. This is all scientifically done and managed, and they've been doing a great job. I mean, most of the provincial jurisdictions have been doing a fabulous job over the years, and that's why we have the populations that we have and the management that we have. Absolutely. Again, we have things that are falling through the cracks, or maybe getting done on emotion, but for the most part, these guys and gals are doing a fabulous job, and we work with them. As you said, we sit on the committee advisory committees in Alberta, for example. I know we're in Ontario, we're in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, British Columbia, and we'll tell them, hey, look, we don't agree with this, or yes, this is a great job. You've done a great job here, and we really agree with it.
Yeah, or prove it to us. And I mean, I think sometimes just even asking for that accountability is the most important function. And if that accountability is there, great, we'll support you. And if it isn't, okay, well, let's figure out something that works. And, I just talk about Alberta because I'm really familiar with what's going on here. But I mean, we've had some big battles here with sheep and things like that where there was no accountability. And, Safari Club was right in the middle of that battle as well, and fighting for accountability. It's not like they were trying to say what the science was. It was like, prove to us what you're saying. Like, show us the data, show us. And, at the end of the day, it wasn't there. And
right.
they stop rules from being changed just on a whim.
Yeah, and that's not just SCI. There's many organizations that are involved in doing it. And like I say, if you don't feel comfortable being a part of SCI, join Alberta Fish and Game, join Duck Limited, join Delta Waterfowl. Get involved, get your family involved. These are the things. Sports are very important. They're great for kids. They don't have to play every sport. But get them outside, get them away from the computer, get them away from their cell phones. It'll be the best thing you'll ever do for your family.
Oh, no, totally. So before we go, I just want to talk a little bit about the Safari Club International Convention. That, to me, is the most amazing place you will ever go in your life. And I've told so many people that, and they're like, yeah, whatever. And then they go for the first time, and they're just like, and I tell them, like, make sure you plan 3 days. And they're used to, our local sportsman shows and things like that, where you can walk through in 3 hours. I'm like, no, make sure you have 3 days when you go to walk through it. And the first time they go there, but tell us a little bit about it. It's truly amazing.
It's I forget now the size. It's like 17 football fields. It's going to be in Las Vegas this year. As we talked about earlier, we're going to be celebrating our 50th anniversary starting this year. There's lots of great things planned. But, I've been doing it now. This is 16 years with Safari Club International. It'll be my 16th convention. And every year I still am mesmerized by, there's the best taxidermists you'll ever see in the world. The most amazing art you'll ever see in the world, the most amazing furniture, and much of it's wildlife themed, if you can imagine. There is the most amazing firearms and shotguns, every make and model. There's any type of outfitting industry that you want to do, if you want to go fishing or bird hunting or deer hunting or, you name it, from every part of the world. Russia, Ethiopia, Africa, Canada, United States. It's something that, even if you said, I agree with you, you need at least 3 days. And if you just went and seen it once, I can't explain it. I really can't explain, what it really is. Bring a really good pair of sneakers, lock up your credit card and and come and just check it out. Take lots of pictures and really enjoy it. And the other thing is, we can all get together and talk commonly about things that we are also passionate about. Where else do you get 20,000 people in a room that just want to talk about hunting and fishing?
Well, and virtually every one of them is your friend by the time you leave there. Like, I can't count how many times, we've gone to a banquet and sat at a table where we didn't know a soul, or, sat down to have a beer on the show floor and somebody comes and sits beside you. And, some of those people are actually lifelong friends right now. And the only thing we had in common to start with was hunting. And to me, that's amazing. But, I always say that dreamers are the greatest benefits of adventure. And, to me, that is the ultimate place to go dream. And I've gone to Safari Club not having a clue about some of the hunts that are available in the world, and just seeing them there. And our trip to England was a classic example. I think it was about 10 years ago. We were walking around the Safari Club floor, and there was a guy who had a mounted muntjac and a mounted Chinese water deer on his table. And, they're both about this big kind of thing. Like, they're tiny, tiny little animals. And I looked at that and I was like, oh my, like, what is that? Tell me about it. And kind of learned all about it. And it took me 10 years to finally get to hunt them. But it's something I never would have gone and done. And just walking around there, I think, looking at all the hunting opportunities around the world, and there's lots that I can never afford, but man, there's a lot that I can dream about and save for and can afford.
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember your muntjac, and I've told you this. That is one of the animals that I've always wanted to go hunt. I remember the first time I seen it was the same idea. It was like, I thought somebody was playing a trick with the deer with fangs on it, right? What's this? Turns out these are actual animals out there. How cool is that? And so I agree with you. I mean, there's so much. And it's like I was talking about going to Africa. You get talking to somebody that's went to Africa and how much fun and how wonderful it is. And there's a million different ways you can go to Africa. You can go to South Africa and it's 5-star, and realistically it's, you can hunt as hard as you want to or as easy as you want to. I took my wife with me. She was ecstatic. We were halfway through the trip and she's like, we can do this every year. she's realized now that that's not affordable with taxidermy and everything else. But I mean, she just had a wonderful time. She felt safe and secure the entire time. And we will go back. We're not going to go to the same spot. We're going to try a new spot. You want to hunt in the jungle. You want to do mountain hunting. You want to do anything you want. Sky's the limit.
Yeah.
You want to go fishing. You want to go fishing in South America, in Panama. I mean, everything's there that you want to do, or you just want to learn about it. You want to see some of the world's greatest taxidermy, ideas for taxidermy. It's there.
Well, and I'm still kind of an old school guy. I like to shake someone's hand before I give them money. I like to look them in the eye. And I know when Vanessa and I were first talking about going to Africa, which was probably back in about 2007 or 8, let's go to Safari Club. Let's go meet a bunch of people. And at that time, Vanessa was really concerned that, she was taken seriously as a woman hunter and everything else. So, we went, I think we met with 44 different outfitters while we were there. And there's nowhere else in the world you could go do that. And, we came out of there with a short list of 2 or 3. And over the next course of the year, we corresponded with them and ended up booking a hunt that was, and we had a lot of criteria for our first hunt. It was kind of funny, it had to be free range. We wanted to go camping out in the desert. It was stuff that was just crazy thoughts, but we found an outfitter that did every one of those things perfectly. And I don't think on the internet or anywhere else that would have ever been possible. And we trusted and knew the guy that we were going with long before we ever went to, it was important to me, and it still is important to me.
My guess is you probably were able to talk to other people that hunted with them while you were there at convention. That's the other thing that I always found interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, no, I've been wanting to go with this. Oh, come here. This guy's been with him a dozen times, and he has a book there with a bunch of pictures on it. I'm like, oh, great! What a better person to ask how you'd be treated and how things will go.
Yeah, exactly. So we're in some uncertain times right now, Jason, and I think I guess we can all see the end. I think it's pretty easy to get kind of down, and we're going to lose some good people from the industry, unfortunately, just to these tough economic times. But there's an end to it. And I think as hunters especially, and as gun owners, we need to keep positive. We need to realize there's a future. I was on a Zoomcast last week with the guys from Hornady, and they were talking about the OIC and how bad things were up here. And I said, you know what? Don't count us out yet. There's a lot of fight left in us. And I think this fight is just getting started. And I don't think Trudeau or Blair had any idea the sleeping giant they were awaking with this OIC. I mean, we've taken a lot of other things, firearms related, pretty quietly. And I think they thought, 100,000 gun owners, who's even going to notice? I think they've awoken a sleeping giant here, and the number of court challenges going on. There's a lot of things going on. You guys are in the middle of that fight. You're in the middle of a lot of anti-hunting fights. So it's easy to get down, but I like to look at the positive and go, and we're going to lose some battles. That's just the way things go. But I think we're going to win a lot too.
I agree. I think you're going to see a lot of great things coming out of Safari Club International, Canada and internationally. I think we're going to see a major change in the way we do business in Canada. I think people are tired of the way things are happening. I agree. I think that this whole pandemic thing is starting to get behind us. At least I hope that's the case. And if nothing else, I think we've learned a lot of stuff, on how things happen and the world and so on and so forth. These Zoom meetings, what a great tool. And I can see a lot of business being done this week. For example, we just did our advocacy week last week or this week, and it was fantastic. We did it all on these computers. It was excellent.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly, Vanessa and I've been talking about starting a podcast for, I think, a couple of years now. And it's just, we've been too busy. The timing hasn't been right. Then all of a sudden, we were kind of locked down like everyone else was. And we had some time to do it. And all of a sudden, Zoom became available. And I like still talking to people, looking them in the eye. I don't want to, we're not in the same room, but it in a lot of ways, it feels like we are. I want to thank you a lot for taking some time out of your day. I know you are a crazy, crazy busy guy, but you always love to chat hunting. And hopefully our paths will cross in person here, and we don't have to bump elbows or something. We can actually shake hands.
I look forward to that time. So again, thank you so much. I appreciate everything you're doing for the industry, for hunting, and keeping the people informed about the things that we're doing and the other organizations are doing. So thank you, and thank you, Vanessa, for that as well.
Thanks a lot. And like I say, it's all for, I mean, it's for our personal benefit for sure, but we are just passionate. I think everybody involved in this industry is just passionate about hunting, and that's where it's
I
going to
agree.
end. So if people want to learn a little bit more about Safari Club, where should they go?
Go to our website, Safari Club International, or safariclub.org.
SafariClub.org.
Yeah, and then if they want to check on Canada specifically, it's sci-canada.ca.
And perfect. Okay, Jason, I want to thank you so much again, and keep up the good fight.
Thank you very much. We'll look forward to talking to you soon.